Alright guys, welcome back to F1 News Breakdown. Absolute carnage unfolding in Formula 1 right now. And honestly, this might be the wildest pre-season drama we've ever seen. Red Bull just backstabbed Mercedes in what has to be the most savage move of 2026. Both teams were exploiting the exact same engine compression ratio loophole going into the new season. But here's the twist. Red Bull couldn't crack it like Mercedes did. So they did what Red Bull does best. They snitched to the entire grid. And now, 4 out of 5 manufacturers want Mercedes' head on a plate. The FIA held an emergency meeting. Melbourne is in weeks. And wait till you hear what Mercedes just threatened to do about all of this. Plus, there's a second Mercedes engine trick that just got discovered that nobody's talking about. We'll get to that in a bit. Drop your thoughts in the comments as we go through this absolute mess. Smash that like button if you're here for the chaos, and subscribe if you're new, because this saga is just getting started. Also, apologies if this video drops a bit late today. I've been diving deep into paddock sources, trying to piece together exactly what's happening behind closed doors. And man, it is spicy. So let me paint you a picture here. Imagine you and your buddy are working on a school project together, right? You're both digging through the assignment rubric and you find this loophole. It's technically allowed based on how the teacher wrote the rules. You could both absolutely crush this and get a ++ if you exploit it. So you go to the teacher, you ask them, "Hey, is this cool?" And the teacher says, "Yeah, technically, that's allowed. Go for it." But then your buddy realizes they can't actually pull it off as well as you can. They don't have the same skills, the same resources, whatever. So what do? They go back to the teacher with 3 other students and say, "Actually, this loophole is unfair. You should change the rules." That's exactly what just happened between Red Bull and Mercedes. Here's the background. The 2026 regulations dropped the engine compression ratio from 18:1 down to 16:1. Why? Sustainability, efficiency, all that good stuff, blah blah blah. But here's the kicker, the rules say this compression ratio has to be measured cold and static, at ambient temperature in the pit lane. Mercedes, and apparently Red Bull too, saw an opportunity there. And as one viewer absolutely perfectly put it in the comments, Mercedes in the Air Bud movie, there's nothing in the rules that says a dog can't drive the car. I mean, come on, that's brilliant. But before we get into the technical wizardry and the Red Bull betrayal, let me tell you about the other drama that dropped this week, because it's all connected. So Lando Norris dropped an absolute bomb about what qualifying is going to look like in 2026. And honestly, I don't think people realize how bad this is. The battery problem is insane. These new power units have so much electrical energy, but if you deploy it all at once, it drains in like 12 to 15 seconds. 12 to 15 seconds, guys, that's it. So the solution? Drivers are going to lift and coast during qualifying laps. Think about that for a second. Qualifying. The one session where it should be absolutely flat out, maximum attack, pedal to the metal. Now drivers have to manage their iPhone battery mid-flying lap. Like, what are we even doing here? And Ferrari fans are already memeing this to death in the comments. Ferrari's been practicing lift and coast all of last season. It's our year. And honestly, they're not wrong. That's actually hilarious. But it gets worse. Turbo lag is back this year. You know why? Because the MGU-H is gone. That's the thing that kept the turbo spooled up in previous years. Now drivers have 2 options at the race start. Option 1. Deploy the full battery. You get a consistent getaway, but you're out of juice by turn 1. Option 2. Save the battery, but then you risk turbo lag absolutely destroying your start. And Lando's already predicting we're going to see cars falling back through the pack from botched getaways. Imagine Spa, right? You deploy everything off the line, you make it through La Source, you're charging up Eau Rouge, and by the time you hit the top, your battery is done. You've got nothing left. That's the reality of 2026. So yeah, the new regulations are already a complete mess. But back to the main event, the compression ratio controversy that's literally tearing the paddock apart right now. Alright, so let's break down this loophole because it's actually pretty clever when you understand it. Compression ratio is basically how much the air-fuel mixture gets squeezed before ignition. Higher compression equals more power and better efficiency. Simple physics. The 2026 limit is 16:1, down from 18:1 in the previous era. But here's the trick. The rules say you measure this at ambient temperature, static conditions. When engines heat up, metals expand. That's called thermal expansion. Basic physics that literally every engineering student learns in their first year. Mercedes apparently designed their engine to be exactly 16:1 when it's cold. But when that engine heats up during a race, reports are saying it gets closer to 18:1. And the power gain from that? Estimated at 10 to 15 horsepower. That's massive. A viewer who clearly knows their physics dropped this in the comments. Every student learns you have to measure material at the right temp for precision. What were the FIA thinking? And honestly, that's a great point. But another comment pointed out it's not just thermal deformation of the cylinder. It's about combustion chamber dynamics and fuel mixture behavior under heat. So there are multiple technical factors at play here. Now, Mercedes' position is pretty clear. Toto came out and said, "Our engine is absolutely legal. We've had very positive communications with the FIA from the start." They claim they worked with the FIA throughout the entire development process. They literally asked permission at every step and got approval. Mercedes spent years developing this engine based on the FIA giving them the green light. But Ferrari, Honda, and Audi? They're furious. Their argument is simple. Article 5.6.3 says, no cylinder may exceed 16:1, period. Doesn't matter how you test it, doesn't matter when you test it. They designed their engines to actually be 16:1, because that's what the rule says. And now they're at a disadvantage because Mercedes found a way around it. But here's where this gets absolutely wild. Red Bull's role in all of this. So let's talk about the timeline of Red Bull's deception here, because this is straight out of a spy movie. Phase 1. The copy attempt. Ex-Mercedes engineer Ben Hodgkinson joins Red Bull Powertrains. He knows about Mercedes' trick. He's seen it from the inside. Red Bull attempts to replicate it. They had insider knowledge and time to develop their own version. Phase 2. The snitch. Red Bull apparently leaked this information to the other teams first. They were the ones who told Ferrari, Honda, and Audi what Mercedes were up to. But they stayed neutral publicly at first. Why? Because they thought they could get their own version working and gain the same advantage. Phase 3. The backstab. Red Bull couldn't crack it. Their version wasn't as effective as what Mercedes had. So they had a decision to make. Support Mercedes, potentially finish fourth behind a dominant Mercedes, McLaren, and maybe Ferrari, or burn it all down and hope to pick up the pieces. They chose chaos. Red Bull now sides with Ferrari, Honda, and Audi. That's 4 out of 5 manufacturers all against Mercedes, and the comments are absolutely roasting them for this. That's the most Red Bull thing to happen since Horner left. And honestly, facts. Someone else said, Red Bull, I'll just spoil the party. And that pretty much sums it up perfectly. Classic Red Bull move. Leak the trick, stay neutral for a bit, then flip sides 1 month before the season starts. The consequences? FIA held an emergency meeting on January 22nd. They're now discussing changing the test procedure from cold measurement to hot measurement. But here's the catch. Changing the rules isn't as simple as you might think. Because this is where Liberty Media comes into play, and this is where it gets political. For the FIA to change this, they need 3 things. They need 4 of the 5 manufacturers to back it. Check. Red Bull flipped. They need FIA approval. Check, they're pushing for it. But they also need Formula One management approval. That's Liberty Media. And that's a very different conversation. If Mercedes engines are deemed illegal right now, who can't race? Mercedes, obviously. McLaren, the reigning Constructors' Champions. Williams, Alpine. That's 4 out of 11 teams, more than a third of the grid. And Liberty Media cares about one thing above everything else: viewership and revenue. Missing 4 teams is an absolute disaster for TV deals, for sponsors, for the fans. And here's where Mercedes goes nuclear. Reports are suggesting Mercedes threatened legal action if the FIA changes the rules now. And someone in the comments absolutely killed me with this. Mercedes threatening to go to court over this? You didn't even go to court in 2021. I mean, that's just brilliant. But is it posturing or is it a real threat? That's the question. Because here's the legal grey area. The rule says no cylinder may exceed 16:1. That part doesn't change. But the test procedure says measured at ambient temperature. That's what could change. Mercedes' argument? We followed the test procedure exactly as written. FIA's counter. The rule says 16:1 at all times. The test procedure is just the methodology. Legal grey area equals lawyer heaven. And we've seen this before, right? 2009, Braun's double diffuser. Legal, allowed for the full season, banned the next year. 2019, Ferrari's engine. Deemed illegal mid-development. Team absolutely hobbled. 2020, Mercedes DAS. Legal for 1 year, banned the next season. So which path is the FIA going to take this time? The timeline problem is massive. Melbourne is in roughly 4 weeks. Can Mercedes redesign their engine in time? Maybe 3 to 4 months realistically. Can they race with their current engine? Not if it's deemed illegal. We're heading for a stalemate. And just when you thought this couldn't get messier, there's another Mercedes engine trick that just surfaced. So breaking reports are coming out about a second Mercedes engine innovation. This one's related to front axle regeneration blocking. Apparently, Mercedes blocked a rule change that would have prevented a lot of these battery management issues we're seeing. So they blocked a fix that would have helped everyone, just to keep their competitive advantage. One comment nailed it. Mercedes blocking front axle regeneration is criminally under-discussed. And they're right. This could have avoided the whole lift and coast in qualifying nightmare. But Mercedes wanted their edge. They prioritized winning over making the sport better to watch. It shows a pattern here of pushing boundaries versus following the spirit of the rules. So what happens next? Well, there are basically 3 scenarios. Scenario 1. The FIA backs down completely. Mercedes keeps the advantage, other teams scramble to copy it, or they use that ADUO catch-up mechanism that's built into the regulations. Red Bull, Ferrari, Honda, Audi are absolutely furious. We probably see protests in Melbourne. Total chaos. Scenario 2. Mid-season compromise. The FIA allows Mercedes to use their engine for the first few races. Gives them until Canada or Spain to redesign it. Maybe they add a weight penalty or a power restriction in the meantime to level the playing field. Kind of like what they did with DAS in 2020. Saves face for everyone involved. Scenario 3. The nuclear option. FIA deems it illegal now. Mercedes refuses to race or they go to court. 4 teams missing from the Melbourne grid. The 2026 season starts as a complete disaster. Legal battle drags into 2027 and beyond. Honestly, I think we get Scenario 2. Liberty Media will not allow Scenario 3 to happen. Mercedes won't back down without a fight. But I'll tell you what, Melbourne is going to be absolutely spicy regardless. The fans are completely split on this, by the way. You've got Team Innovation saying, this is what F1 is about, pushing boundaries and finding clever solutions. Then you've got Team Fair Play saying, the rule says 16-1, period. This is cheating. And then you've got Team Nostalgia just going, how about we just bring back V10s and call it a day? Some of the best comments I've seen. Jesus Christ, we're discussing compression rates. Meanwhile, the cars sound like a freaking blender. Another one. Starting to sound like 2026 is going to be a season to forget. And honestly, they might not be wrong. Look, I get both sides of this. Mercedes worked with the FIA. They played by the test procedure as it was written. They asked permission, they got approval. But the rule is 16-1. And if they're running 18-1 when they're actually racing, that's not what the rule says, man. That's just not. Red Bull flipping sides, though? That's peak Red Bull. Can't even be mad at it. It's strategic genius, even if it's absolutely ruthless. And that second Mercedes trick I mentioned earlier? Yeah, keep an eye on that. That could end up being the real story here as this all develops. We'll know a lot more after Bahrain testing kicks off next week. That's when the rubber meets the road, literally. So I'm absolutely fascinated to hear your thoughts in the comments. Are you Team Mercedes or Team Ferrari, Red Bull, Honda, Audi? Is this innovation or is this cheating? Should the FIA change the test procedure, or is that completely unfair to Mercedes, who followed the rules as they were written? Let me know down below. Hit that like button if you enjoyed diving into this absolute chaos with me. Subscribe if you're new to F1 News Breakdown. We're covering every single twist and turn of this saga as it develops, and trust me, we are just getting started. I'll see you in the next one, where we break down everything from Bahrain testing. Take care, guys.